All right, welcome to Frontline. 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, and we are in day 22 of the government shutdown with pretty much no end in sight. But we begin tonight with some breaking news from the People's House. President Trump hosting NATO Secretary Mark Rutte at the White House to discuss his plan on how to bring an end to this Russian-Ukraine war. This as Trump reverses course with his meeting with Putin. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into this later in the show. Plus, remember the teacher we told you about the other day who went viral for apparently mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination during the No Kings Clowns protest this weekend? Well, according to a new report, the principal of her school is painting that woman as the victim. Made no mention of the accusation against her or her behavior or anything else in the letter. This is to parents. These people do anything but take accountability for their own actions. But first, the party that said follow the science is now protesting the science because they hate Donald Trump. Let's do this. So, you ever heard of the Governor's Public Health Alliance? Yeah, me neither. But it's this new public health group that has J.B. Pritzker as the apparent spokesman of a nonprofit with the intent of appearing as an official government organization, trying to get people to disregard RFK, the CDC, the FDA, and other health institutions because, orange man bad. J.D. Pritzker's not the health spokesman I want to listen to. But in fact, and if history shows us anything, whenever Democrats name something, you can rest assured that whatever they're naming it, it probably does the opposite. The Inflation Reduction Act, that raised inflation significantly. The Affordable Health Care Act, done by Obama, made health care a lot less affordable. The Border Security, Economic Opportunity, and Immigration Modernization Act was in fact the pathway to 20 million illegal immigrants coming across the border, milking our benefit system dry and even ending up some of them on our voter rolls. So, excuse me and my skepticism for this one. This is a group of all Democrats claiming to be a bipartisan health committee. It's essentially a shadow FDA, not for health benefits, but for Democrats to politically oppose anything that comes out of the White House, which is super dangerous. Connecticut, Illinois, Colorado, Delaware, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Oregon, Rhode Island, Washington, and of course the territory of Guam. Thank God they got that one in there. All have signed on to this stupid thing according to their website, which right now is just a landing page. And it says, quote, a nonpartisan, nonprofit coalition of governors that works together to protect public health. Really? Okay. Well, who funds this nonprofit anyway? Well, oh, look at that. It's the Governor's Action Alliance. What else does that group fund? Ooh, look at that. The Reproductive Freedom Alliance and a few more, all super left-wing causes. So this isn't bipartisan at all. It's just anti-Trump, funded by liberal donors. I love the tagline at the bottom of their unfinished website. Disease doesn't stop at state borders. Well, neither does the Second Amendment, but you guys refuse to acknowledge that. Anyway, they're just seeking to counter the advice of RFK at the current health institutions that he's running. Again, their de facto spokesman ain't off to a great start.
If your doctor recommends acetaminophen, you should ignore the recommendation of the president that you fight like hell not to take it.
Dear Lord, this is what they're combating? Simply because Trump said it, therefore it must be combated? Look, Trump and RFK didn't say you shouldn't take acetaminophen when you're pregnant because they're like flying by the seat of their pants or just making stuff up. Trump and RFK said that because that's what the manufacturer said before Trump was even president. It also happens to say it on the back of the bottle. But I know reading is hard for Democrats. And those manufacturers put that on their warning label because they had the data that is now being released that showed taking acetaminophen while pregnant could lead to increased risk of your child having autism. I mean, guys, come on. Which apparently, according to the same group of governors, autism, because Trump said it's bad and they're trying to combat it, apparently to this new group, autism is a good thing and we shouldn't strive to mitigate it, I guess.
Contrary to RFK Jr.'s bigoted evaluation, autistic people are not tragedies.
Oh, dude, really? Like, this makes me think of movie Tropic Thunder. But anyway, cosmic TDS levels. Of course, no one's condemning the person with autism themselves, okay? Nobody's doing that. The person is not the tragedy, but the fact that they are born with or may develop autism, that is the tragedy. I also find it rich that the same people celebrating abortion somehow find it offensive that RFK wants to stop unborn children from being exposed to things that might cause autism later in life. It's just so rich. Perhaps this group's time would be better spent convincing the women who hate Trump so much to stop overdosing on acetaminophen, like this woman. As far as I'm concerned, these dozen or so governors, they lost all their credibility by their response to COVID. These states were among the strictest to do the lockdowns with some of the most draconian and non-science-based COVID measures. Masking, totally worthless. 6-foot social distancing, complete farce. Vaccinations, didn't do any of the things they claimed. Turns out it wasn't safe and effective. And now we have double the number of young athletes dropping dead of heart attacks in just the last 4 years than we've had in the last 4 decades. They called ivermectin a horse dewormer, when in fact it did win the Nobel Prize for its safe and effective application to human disease and parasite eradication. What do I know? I mean, we were told to follow the science by those same Democrats when there was absolutely no science. And the science we do have now shows that nearly every decision that those Democrats made during COVID either didn't do anything or was worse than the illness itself. So hard pass on your follow the science block party. Those guys eroded absolutely any trust Republicans had in health agencies that they ran. Not because of partisanship, but because they were wrong about everything. Everything. The CDC under Biden and Fauci, the Center for Disease Control, didn't control any diseases. In fact, they funded new diseases in new ways and tested them on beagles in other countries with our tax dollars. RFK is trying to clean that up now, and they're protesting it. And J.B. Pritzker and his fellow non-scientist Democrats and all those governors, they're out there to do exactly what they say the problem is in Washington, which is they are now partnering with private companies to use what they call dark money to lobby state and federal governments to implement their health agenda. But I thought lobbying and dark money was bad.
Allowing unlimited dark money in our politics has just damaged our democracy in very serious ways and causes people to just lose faith in the process.
This group is a tax-deductible 501c3, but they do also have a C4 action arm, which, by the way, if you know anything about the IRS laws, allows huge donations without disclosing where it came from. Exactly their definition that they've been railing about against dark money. These dozen or so governors are going to put out medical advice, ignoring their track record. I mean, like, the memory hole from these people is incredible. Well, I mean, what's worse, a lot of people, Democrats, and look, I want Democrats to be healthy too, okay? This is not a partisan thing, but people, their supporters are probably going to listen to them because they've been so conditioned that anything Trump does is somehow bad. But the problem is, it might actually get somebody killed. Look, nothing RFK is doing or saying is untrue. The things he is putting out cannot be medically disproven. I might advise about, leaving a dead bear in Central Park. Makes me want to party with him, though. But anything he's talking about, seed oils to his concerns about mercury in our vaccines or the sheer number of vaccines we get as children, fitness standards, everything RFK is talking about is documented in science and it can back it up. And yet these governors are somehow set out to oppose him. It'd be funny if it wasn't going to cost people their health and maybe even their lives. Physician and inventor of the mRNA technology and Maha Alliance medical advisor, Dr. Robert Malone. Dr. Malone, this is real scary that they're just going to do this out of pure opposition.
Well, it's kind of how they roll. And having J.B. Pritzker as their poster child is not exactly personify good health as opposed to Bobby and the Secretary of War. What's fascinating here, remember that Pritzker is also a big proponent of transitioning our children and the surgical manipulation of their genitals and other secondary sexual characteristics. This guy has, as you point out, absolutely no credibility in any parameter. But hey, there's a good side to this. the states under the Constitution have the right to regulate the practice of medicine.
Right.
And if these states want to form a coalition and go against the recommendations of the current HHS, we have other states, because this is a laboratory of democracy situation, like Florida, that are eliminating mandates. And we're going to get a chance to see what the outcomes are. Now, unfortunately, as you point out, those poor Democrats living in those states subjected to this propaganda and these misrepresentations are going to bear the brunt of it. And I'm sorry for that. I mourn the death and disease that may flow from this. But if that's the way we got to play the game, then so be it. And if they want to get crazy with their TDS problems, you can't fix crazy. Right. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and being a doctor, I'll take your word for that one. But the other thing, too, is like this is something they should be celebrating. What you said is the ability to regulate medicine per states and things like that. I mean, look, they were furious when the Supreme Court tossed the Roe v. Wade decision and pushed it back onto the states. But now,
exactly,
yeah,
precisely,
exactly. But they're also now they're using that to do the transitioning for kids and all the chop this off, sew this on, and hormones and weird stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So if that's the way things are going to roll, then you're going to see more U-Hauls flooding out of California and Illinois and these other states down to the free parts of the country. But if that's the way it has to be, then so be it. I'm a big fan of constitutionalism and of decentralization. And one of the consequences is that some states are going to make bad decisions, some states are going to make good decisions, and unfortunately the poor in those states are the ones that are going to suffer because they don't have the ability to all go live down in Palm Beach.
Well, the best part about it is as human beings, we all have the decision to make of what goes in or not in our body, and some people are so committed to the Democrat agenda, they're just going to do whatever they're told, which is shocking to me. I want to get to this. The reason the government shut down is because Democrats want to do all these subsidies for health care for the ACA, specifically for illegal immigrants and things like that. But the expiration of these health credits, these tax credits and stuff like that, Democrats voted to have it sunset in the first year of the Trump administration for solely political purposes. And now they're using it to say that Trump is bad. It's like those people are the ones who made it sunset in the first place.
So your problem is that Democrats lie, mislead, and manipulate information. This is like saying I have a problem that the sun rises in the morning.
Yeah. But the staggering thing here is all these people, and you know, as a healthcare guy, you clearly know this, is that healthcare worked. Not everybody had it because not everybody was forced to have it, and not everybody wanted it. Yes, it was a tragedy for some people when they, had a serious injury or illness or something like that. However, it was their choice. Obamacare comes in. Yes, you have to have healthcare. Then they brag about how many people are on healthcare because it's the law. But then they're shocked when premiums go up because now men have to pay for maternity leave because, or, lady doctor appointments that they shouldn't have to pay because it's a one-size-fits-all. How do we get back to sanity and a healthcare system that actually works?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. You just put your finger right on it. It is the hottest source of debate within MAHA and within the various physician communities and organizations like AAPS, this organization that supports primary physicians and healthcare providers. How do we get back to a system that makes sense, that is cost effective? And that is absolutely at the heart of the MAHA Alliance. I suggest that anybody interested in what the current policies are for MAHA and the MAHA Commission, they may find it useful to look at our Substack. I've done a couple of deep dives into public policy over the last couple of days. They're not really popular with the X crowd, but if you want to get into the gears and see what is being planned by the president and the secretary, it's important to pay attention to the details. And the plans are amazing. Major reorganization, refocusing, and in general, focusing on health promotion, not disease treatment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, shocker that they're not focused on the things that actually matter. And you guys are. Dr. Robert Malone, pleasure as always, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Coming up, Governor Ron DeSantis cooking up a new vote to eliminate Florida's property taxes in 2026 midterm elections. Whoa! I mean, who would vote against this? But first, you know how the left-wing media has called Trump literally Hitler for, I don't know, the past decade? Well, oh boy. The table's turning on the Dems now. We got that, the Maine Senate scandal, next.
Just before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead. Charlie wrote this in the foreword for the new book, Pagan Threat, by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said that Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read and share this book. A #1 Amazon bestseller, Pagan Threat is available everywhere. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer and save $30. Go online today and read Charlie's final words.
This is keratin debris, where nail fungus grows. Nonex nail gel cleans out fungus by removing keratin debris. Using Nonex, 90% of nails improve. Get clinically proven results. Nonex is made in the USA and so effective, it's money-back guaranteed. Lift out the fungus with Nonex. For clear, healthy-looking nails, use Nonex Fungal Nail Clarifying Gel. Buy Nonex at Amazon, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart.
With today's NBA stars, no lead is safe.
Bet on it. Up 20 used to be a lock.
To Steph, Booker, and Brunson, that's fool's gold.
Got a lead against the Joker? Joke's on you.
Hoopers get hot like pop, pop, pop. And your bet just cashed.
That's money.
New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins. Paid in bonus bets. Plus, get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us. The crown is yours.
When an earache strikes, you need relief fast. Introducing Earache RX from Dr. Easy, the makers of Wax RX. Not just another eardrop, Earache RX is real medicine with 4% lidocaine. Earache RX has the maximum strength available without a prescription. Strong enough for adults, yet gentle enough for kids. Earache RX gives you fast relief that starts working on contact.
Don't wait for an earache to strike. Get the power of real medicine. Get Earache RX at these fine retailers.
We're going on like year 10 of the media calling Trump a Nazi, literally Hitler.
Found similar to the language of Hitler. Praising Hitler.
Well, Hitler was duly elected. That's right. Right? Trump is telling us what he intends to do.
In 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler is once again alive and well on a national political stage.
Donald Trump is also a racist and a neo-Nazi.
They are loyal to this wannabe Hitler.
Can't say they didn't do it. Even went as far as saying that when Trump was selling that $88 baseball back in 2020, that was actually code for HH, the eighth letter of the alphabet is H, which they reached real far and denoted that as an abbreviation for Heil Hitler. Okay, the left did anything they could to make Trump out to be like Hitler, but they've been real quiet ever since this doozy dropped. Maine Democrat U.S. Senate candidate Graham Plantner. He's seen in a resurfaced video with a Nazi-linked tattoo of the Panzer Division on his chest. Ruh-roh. But this is how he justified it.
And it was my third deployment, and we got very inebriated. And we did what Marines on liberty do, and we decided to go get a tattoo. And we went to a tattoo parlor in Split, Croatia, and we chose a terrifying looking skull and crossbones off the wall because we were Marines, and skulls and crossbones are a pretty standard military thing. At no point in this entire experience of my life did anybody ever once say, "Hey, you're a Nazi." It never came up.
And today he came out announcing that he's covered it up after 18 years. He's suddenly disgusted by it. By the symbol? Joe Pags, host of the Joe Pags Show. Joe, there is also, if you go down the rabbit hole, some allegations now that he may or may not have a 1919 tattoo, which would stand for SS.
You know, Carl, I'm laughing because you and I work out like crazy people. And the guy, he's so happy to pull up his shirt and just show it all off. I didn't get it. Yeah, he didn't realize he was getting the Nazi Pinzer tattoo because he was inebriated. You know, I just thought about this. A lot of wide receivers in the NFL are number 88. Many of them are black. Black Nazis? You never know. This is so extremely stupid. The problem I have is that there is a percentage, thankfully it's a dwindling, I think, percentage of the United States that believes these idiots when they say all this fascist stuff and neo-Nazi and neo-Hitler. You know, Hitler took away guns. Hitler raised regulations and increased taxes and took away all your freedom. Donald Trump is the worst Hitler of anybody who's ever tried to be Hitler. I mean, he's this fascist that doesn't understand what it means, I guess. But I've got to tell you, they keep on trying to get away from their own shadow. And every time they open their mouths about Hitler and everything else, it just tells you and me and all the great people that watch you every day that they just don't have an issue. They just don't have anything they can really stump on. What is their platform? That he's a bad guy, he's Hitler? That's stupid.
It is stupid. You're absolutely right. The worst. He might be the worst racist of all time, actually. It's
yeah, he's very bad at it.
All right, so this is actually a more recent reason why Democrats are attacking Trump, and they're crazy. But the ballroom renovations. Hillary Clinton thought she would weigh in on this thing, saying, it's not his house, it's your house, and he's destroying it. Need I remind you, Hillary, of Monica Lewinsky and the fact that you had to return a bunch of stolen items after you left the White House? Maybe she should sit this one out, Joe.
Tell me you're not self-aware without telling me you're not self-aware. You know, how many presidents have renovated? What was it? Richard Nixon put a bowling alley in there?
We got that. Mrs. F tweeted this one in. Put this one up. She listed this for us. Teddy Roosevelt built the West Wing. Taft made the Executive Oval Office. FDR added the entire East Wing and included an indoor pool for himself. Truman gutted the entire White House. Nixon added a bowling alley. And Obama added a basketball court.
You know, it's embarrassing because they also try to pretend like they were literally tearing down the actual White House. If you see an overhead shot from a satellite, they're tearing down some building that was far away from the actual White House. They're not damaging the actual building. And the first stump was this, Carl. You can't believe that he's using taxpayer. Oh, he's not? He's not using taxpayer dollars? I can't believe he's doing this because he's a fascist. I can't believe he's tearing down the actual White House. These people don't have any issues. I have an idea. Shut your face and go open the government. Go and vote in the Senate like you should be voting for the American people and stop the BS. Again, I'm going to say it again, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like the numbers are dwindling that actually believe these people because of people like you, and hopefully I play a role as well. We're telling them the truth, and this isn't flying anymore.
Yeah, and then, well, I love it when Gavin Newsom was, and he's like, oh, look what he's doing. It's like, I tell you what, let's race and see who finishes building first, the White House ballroom or the Palisades that burned to the ground. Sit this one out too, Gavin. Okay.
Exactly right.
I got to get this. A few Muslim organizations, including the Yemeni American Merchants Association and CARE, the Center for American Islamic Relations, the group that at one point the UAE and a few other countries declared a terrorist organization because they were in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, they held a boycott outside the New York Post, outside the Fox News Corp, where they were protesting the Post over its very accurate, mind you, coverage in exposing Zorhan Mamdani's deep ties to that imam who was basically super anti-gay.
Well, super anti-gay, plus you got the guy that is an unindicted co-conspirator in the blowing up of the World Trade Center in 1993. Yep. Is that an AI picture, Carl? Did you make that up? Did my executive producer give you that? Or is that an actual picture of this guy who might be the next mayor of New York City smiling and glad-handing with these two horrible guys? Am I missing something? What did the Post do? They reported the news? Oh, no. You can't report the news.
No. Joe, and when they don't like it, it's not a lie. It's disinformation because they don't.
Oh, okay. That's what it is.
Exactly. Joe Pags, my man. Pleasure to have you as always.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Coming up, have you ever wondered why more women haven't gotten elected for positions in America? Well, one study may have the reason why. All that and more in our Culture Clash. Bananas. Hey, I'm Carl Higbie from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Back in the day, you bet sinners just to get boards.
Word.
Now I take them to make threes.
Today's NBA stars, everybody does everything.
Ant-Man, SGA, Luka, dudes playing 1 through 5.
Bigs dishing out like family dinner.
Woo! Got me smashing triple doubles. Shaq, basketball, not burgers.
New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins. Paid in bonus bets. Plus, get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us. The crown is yours.
AI company Palantir makes critical decisions for governments around the world. In 2019, Palantir bought $50 million in gold in case of black swan events. Not surprising what followed. In 2020, a pandemic shut down the global economy. And in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. In 2023, we had a regional banking collapse. And in 2025, could a 1929 market crash be the final straw? Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 8 years in a row, home of the no fee for life IRA. Patriot Gold Group is patriots protecting patriots. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Get unlimited satellite internet when you switch to Viasat. No data caps, no contracts. Just a fast, reliable connection installed by pros. Visit getviasat.com or call 877-VIASAT-7 to sign up today. Viasat, internet without limits.
David trusts Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Nice to meet you. My name is David. I've been a pharmacist for 44 years. When I have customers come in, I recommend Prevagen. Number one, because it's safe and effective, does not require a prescription. And I've been taking it quite a while myself. And I love it when the customers come back in and tell me, David, that really works so good for me. Makes my day.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
This is something that a lot of Democrats are grappling with right now, as they've nominated women 2 of the last 3 elections for the presidency, lost both. There are some who say, well, we can't do that again. The stakes are too high. But of course, that does fall into the same misogynistic trap.
Other countries have no problem electing women.
You want to know why this country doesn't elect women? Nothing against women out there, but because women in last year, in case the woman who was anointed to run for president, because it wasn't a primary, or even Hillary Clinton back in 2016, are terrible candidates. And even this cycle, New Jersey, Virginia governor's race, Shirelli and Abigail Spamberger. But also, there's another factor to consider here. How and of what party nominate these women in the first place? Enter this study that noted over 50% of liberal white women under 30 have a mental health issue. And not only that, women are 40% more likely to develop depression than men. And in the 2020 Pew Research Center study, among men and women who are white, liberals, moderates, and conservative, if you take a look at these charts here, just stay with me. For white moderate women, record about a 30% rate of self-proclaiming a mental health issue or a condition. Men are around 20% for under 50, while white conservative men and women, may I note, men are significantly more stable according to this study, but women have slightly lower declared mental health issues over the moderate women, just over 26%. But when you slide over to those who identify as fully liberal, white liberal men and women with mental illness jump substantially, with the 18 to 29-year-old bracket experiencing over 56% of women declaring, personally, they declare that they have some sort of mental health condition. Men with also nearly double the mental health conditions of their conservative counterparts in the same age bracket. Conclusion, The reason we don't have women winning for office because these liberal candidates go through a primary in their own party that are being elected by a base that in some age brackets experiencing over a 50% mental illness rate. That's why they seem crazy when they get to a general election like Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, whatever. Newsmax contributor Chrissy Clark and host of nationally syndicated Tony Katz today. Tony Katz. All right, Chrissy, what do you make of this?
Well, it's really difficult because I don't want to be the woman basher over here. But ladies, we've got to step it up. And, you know, the real thing that was irking me about that MSNBC clip that you played at the front end, which was bashing America for being sexist, for not voting for Abigail Spanberger, when their alternative to voting for her is a black woman. So I don't really see how that adds up. Like, literally doesn't make any sense at all. The truth of the matter is very simple. It's not a sexism problem. It's a candidate problem. There are plenty of really good women on the left and the right who have made it and been elected to office. And there are also terrible women who have been elected to office that are still serving. Hello, Pocahontas. We're talking about you.
But Tony, real quick, before you get going, I want to give you one more stat. So in this country, 1/3 of the debt is held by men, 2/3 of the debt is held by women, yet 2/3 of the gross domestic product is produced by men, 1/3 by women. However, conservative women carry substantially less debt than their liberal counterpart. And on top of that, liberal women carry substantially more debt than their counterpart.
So, wow, that's a deep unpacking. I want to get back to the point that was just made, although I will hit it. This isn't a sexism problem. This is a liberal sexism problem. Liberals didn't vote for Kamala Harris because they're sexist, and I want Mika and the rest of the people at MSNBC to explain themselves on that one. Your argument regarding Virginia, I think, is dead on, and they're not voting for Winsome Sears because they're racist. These are the leftist terms and terminologies, and they will be used against left until morale improves.
Yeah.
That's the situation here. Carl, your argument is one of fiscal responsibility and rationality. If you take a look at that, the last chart you put up was this one right here, where it goes the 18 to 29 bracket, then the 30 to 39 bracket. You could argue that that has something to do with a snapshot in time, or you could say as people age, they realize maybe they were jerks when they were 18 to 29 years old and not necessarily having a mental issue. But having a self-described mental issue, that's about showing how special you are, and that's what a lot of liberals do.
Well, everybody's rushing to have some sort of ailment, it's like some sort of currency to have a disability now. All right, Chrissy, here's the other thing. This is not just in America. It's pretty much everywhere, okay? Diversity is not our greatest strength, and it's certainly not in France, because on Sunday, we know there was like $100 million of the stuff stolen from the Louvre in France, that triangle-shaped museum. And guess who was in charge of its security? The first woman ever.
Yes, the first woman ever. What is her name? Dominique Buffin. The thing here, though, Carl, is that I would like to push back and say that I also believe that women could fix this issue. If we gave the Swifties a new Taylor Swift album and told them to solve the missing jewels of the Louvre, that we would have these. It would take all of the Swifties, 10 hours. Yeah. They could find the missing jewels. I do believe that women are the problem and the solution in this scenario.
Yeah. But speaking of liberal women, Jen Psaki, crazy claims on Usha Vance needing to be saved from J.D. Vance. Roll this.
I think the little Manchurian candidate, J.D. Vance, wants to be president more than anything else. Yeah. I always wonder what's going on in the mind of his wife. Are you okay? Please blink 4 times.
Yes.
We'll come over here. We'll save you. And I mean, he's scarier in certain ways.
Real quick, Tony, she may want to circle back on that.
I'm amazed this level of insult hasn't gotten more reaction from all of not only the political right, but of the media. You're going after J.D. Vance's wife. This is an obscene thing to say. She seems to be very happy in her marriage. Jen Psaki doesn't know this. And if we want to talk about people who want to be president worse than anything, let her now talk about Hillary.
Facts. Conclusion today, liberal white women might be the problem right now. Chrissy, Tony, we appreciate it. All right, coming up, could there be an end to property taxes in Florida? I sure hope so. Those deets next.
I'm John Glasgow, and whether the story is right here in New York City in a courthouse or at the border wall in Arizona, we're going to be boots on the ground to bring you all the facts to make sure that you get the story straight, because that's what's important to us right here at Newsmax.
There's nothing worse than losing your dog before their time. So why do so many dog foods contain awful things a human would never eat? To save his pets, world-famous veterinarian Dr. Marty knew he had to change what was in their bowl.
That's why I created Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, my breakthrough formula that's changed everything about dog food.
Nature's Blend contains nothing but all-natural ingredients, designed to help dogs with everything from digestive issues to itching and paw licking, even moving around better. And that's because Nature's Blend is freeze-dried. So instead of destroying the nutrients with high heat, we gently preserve them, and you'll see the difference in your dog.
Take it from a veterinarian with over 50 years of experience saving dogs' lives. I have never seen a food make this much impact on a dog's health.
Such a huge difference in her health. More energy, more playful, no more pooping issues. He's healthier, he looks better.
Dr. Marty has thousands of 5-star reviews. And for a limited time, get up to 54% off Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, plus a free gift with our special TV offer. Call or go to drmartypets.com/TV. That's drmartypets.com/TV.
With today's NBA stars, no lead is safe.
Bet on it. Up 20 used to be a lock.
To Steph, Booker, and Brunson, that's fool's gold.
Got a lead against the Joker? Joke's on you.
Hoopers get hot like pot, pot, pot. And your bet just cashed.
That's money.
New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins. Paid in bonus bets. Plus, get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us. The crown is yours.
This holiday, set the table with the best. From orchard-picked pears to curated gourmet gifts, Harry & David brings a legacy of flavor to every celebration. Make it a hand-picked holiday with Harry & David.
There's a war raging in our society. It's not a battle over politics, race, or the sexual revolution. It's a battle for truth.
What we believe about the Bible is based on what we believe about its source.
The God Who Speaks is an award-winning documentary that uncovers the evidence for the Bible's authority. Discover the truth today. Visit thegodwhospeaks.org.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? And did you know that you can invest from 1 to 5 years and you can spread your investment over those terms to best suit your needs? And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like more information? All you have to do is call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST, or log on to investyrrefi.com. That's investyrrefi.com for complete details. And make sure you review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosure at your leisure. YRefi, investing in America's future.
My vision is, if a local government, wants to tax the commercial stuff, they want to tax snowbird properties, Airbnbs, whatever, that's one thing. But your personal residence, as a homesteaded Floridian, we want you to own that tax-free.
Yep. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis proposing Florida voters can vote to eliminate property tax on the ballot in the 2026 midterm election. This sounds great for taxpayers, but let me just break down what this would look like if you're a city manager for their budgets. And the taxpayers might actually get blindsided with some new weird other tax from this, so be careful about that. We chose a random town in Florida just to see how this might play out. Ocala, Florida, for example. Okay. Has an interesting website that very graphically breaks down their revenues and expenditures. Very nice website. Of their 2026 proposed budget, they have $188 million in annual revenue for the city. $44,600,364 of that is from property taxes. Now, we did a brief real estate search, and it shows that approximately, give or take, 50% of the properties in that city are primary residences, leaving the other 50% either commercial property, because there's not a lot in there, or real estate rentals or snowbirds or things like that that would not be exempt under the proposed law. That means the city would immediately lose $22 million of revenue, of which they would either have to make up in new taxes, which would drive people to shop and buy things in surrounding towns that don't impose those same taxes, or they could make $22 million worth of cuts. But how often does government actually cut stuff? Man, not that much. Look, I am super here for this. I think this is fantastic. I support this with every fiber of my being. I think there should be no taxes and we should be all on our own and deal with it ourselves. But this is going to lead to the governments having to actually do some cutting, which I love. But there's going to be a learning curve, and the government hates cutting budgets. Matthew Foldi, political reporter for The Spectator, and Audrey Fahlberg, National Review politics reporter. Sorry, Audrey. I always call you Ashley for some reason.
All good.
Okay. Matt, this to me is fantastic, but there's going to be a lot of really annoyed municipal people that are going to have to move some stuff around.
That also makes this fantastic. And look, I'm a Jew, so I'm destined to either end up in Florida or in Israel down the road. But I think Florida is in for a lot of good news, because if Zohran Mamdani wins in New York City, a lot of New Yorkers are going to be relocating there. If in 2026 they pass this measure, they need 60% because it's a ballot initiative to implement this. Even more people are going to want to move there. I asked one of my friends, Victoria, who's very much a Floridian, and she said, all of this, by the way, is a testament to the leadership of Ron DeSantis, who's now term limited out. And I honestly think that as he heads for the exit, what an amazing final legacy that this could be for one of the most conservative and one of the best governors in America to leave his state with, which is basically, this is even more jet fuel for Florida, because if you are living in these high tax states, these hellholes like California, man, Florida it's calling your name like the Green Goblin mask, honestly.
Yeah, no. Audrey, according to an FBI report, too, Kash Patel is very close, and we've seen this all over town, uncovering who might be behind funding Antifa. They can't really hide anymore. Reportedly, Patel has followed this money, and there's some indications that a lot of it could be coming from overseas, flowing into the very thing that Democrats rave about, dark money.
So one thing that's been really interesting here is obviously there's been a lot of frustration in liberal organizations that this is infringing on free speech. There have been some conservative groups that are kind of wary, okay, if the government is cracking down on what kind of groups these liberal nonprofits are funding, what is the Democratic president going to do next time around? That said, obviously, the federal government reserves the right to investigate illegal kind of funding toward funding that would, contribute to illegal behavior. But as you mentioned,
Like
there is some
Right, this is not speech, by the way. This is violent criminal activity.
Yeah.
Right. So there were some interesting headlines about Christopher Hone. He's a UK billionaire who, through his various founded organizations, has funded, according to a recent Americans for Public Trust report, over $550 million into U.S. organizations, some of which are tied to George Soros-related kind of groups. So following the Antifa-related executive order, the organization that he founded announced that they're no longer going to do that. So clearly these actions from the Trump administration are spooking foreign funders as well.
Yeah, I'm glad they're finally getting to the bottom of it. Something else that I want to get to the bottom of is what's going on with KJP and her new haircut, but claiming that Biden spoke to the press just as much as Trump. Watch this, Matt.
He talked way less to the press than Donald Trump does. Way less. And he wasn't out there at all. He wasn't good off the cuff. He wasn't doing press conferences. Let's just be real. Like, he didn't do night events.
Tim, that's not true. Tim, you're conflating all of it. The president spoke to the American people a couple times a week. He traveled and did domestic travel and talked directly to the American people.
Does she actually believe she may be have more dementia than Biden does?
That's exactly. Honestly, we understand Joe Biden's excuse. The guy is 900 years old and his brain was applesauce by the end of this. I don't understand what KJP's excuse is here, other than she's dumb and she's making the argument against having DEI press secretaries here. Obviously, it's such a lie, Carl. And just to underscore this, remember, Joe Biden spent about 40% of his presidency on vacation. The guy would call a lid at around noon every day. We know that his best working hours were 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's it. That was the president. We had a vacant White House for 4 years. And the thing that annoys me here is they're still lying about it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
By the way, you missed the maroon memo. You missed the maroon.
That's my bad, man. All right, Audrey,
next time.
Matt, pleasure as always. All right, coming up, President Trump hosting NATO chief Mark Rutte at the White House. We got those details coming up next.
It's everything. Feeling good is everything. I take Balance of Nature, have been for a couple of years. I love it. I'm so happy with it. It is that good.
Get 35% off your first set as a preferred customer with free shipping and our money-back guarantee. Claim this offer by using discount code Newsmax.
Hi, my name is Damian Clark. And if you have both Medicare and Medicaid, I have some really encouraging news that you'll definitely want to hear. Depending on the plans available in your area, you may be eligible to get extra benefits with the Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. These plans have a $0 monthly plan premium. Most plans include the Humana Healthy Options Allowance. Get over $1,000 a year. That's $85 a month to help pay for covered over-the-counter items like vitamins, pain relievers, first aid supplies, and more. The Healthy Options Allowance is loaded onto a prepaid card each month, and whatever you don't spend carries over from each month. Call today to learn about all the items covered. You could have $0 copays on hundreds of prescriptions all year long, including select brand name drugs. All plans have $0 copays for covered preventive dental services, which include 2 free cleanings a year, as well as coverage towards fillings. They also have vision coverage, including vision exams and a yearly allowance towards eyewear, such as lenses or contacts. And hearing coverage, which includes routine hearing exams and coverage towards hearing aids. Plus, your doctor, hospital, and pharmacy may already be part of our large Humana networks. So call the number on your screen now to speak with a licensed Humana sales agent. Wouldn't you love benefits like a monthly allowance to help pay for covered over-the-counter items? So if you have Medicare and Medicaid, call the number on your screen now and speak with a licensed Humana sales agent. If you're eligible, they can even help enroll you over the phone in a Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. And remember, annual enrollment ends on December 7th. So call now. Humana, a more human way to healthcare.
Hi, TV Genie.
What do you want? I wish I could find my shows easier.
I wish my primetime TV was automatically recorded.
I wish I could record more.
Well, I can't do any of those things. So here, I swapped your outfits.
Switch to Dish. Get voice control, automatic primetime recording, and more recording power.
You're welcome.
Switching from DirecTV satellite to Dish can save you over $300 in your first year.
We should get Dish.
In terms of honesty, the only thing I can say is every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere. They just don't go anywhere. So in that sense, but no, look, he's fighting a war. He's in a war. That's two very competent sides, and that's the way war is. You never know with war, but I would say that it's time to make a deal. A lot of people are dying.
Well, President Trump hosting the chief of NATO, Mark Rutte, just a short time ago, saying that it's time to make a deal with Russia. Can Trump pull it off? I mean, he can't. Nobody can. Brent Sadler, former Pentagon official, and John Jordan, former naval intelligence officer. All right, John, this is it's been a tricky one. Putin has not been cooperating, and I honestly thought Putin was going to be a little bit more amicable here.
No, he's not. The issue here, Carl, is that the Russian economy and Putin now almost depends on the continuation of the war and the rally round the flag effect. If he were to make peace of anything less than full victory, he fears that he would be stuck presiding over a broken Russia, broken economy, all those casualties, and having failed to deliver. Russian history suggests that that is generally not survivable. There's a precarious situation for a Russian leader. President Trump now is trying to grow his leverage with causing India to buy less Russian oil and the recent sanctioning of Rosneft and Lukoil to put an end date on Russia's ability to fund the war going forward. The idea that Trump will have more leverage and maybe force something.
But Brent, here's the issue, though. We're talking all these talks of Tomahawk missiles, which are long-range missiles that could hit into Moscow. Like, we run the risk of escalating this, okay? And I realize that Putin's not going to back down until he has the risk of losing something here. But now we're talking about sanctions, and sanctions, honestly, to John's point, could really cripple Russia, even if the war does go on.
Yeah. This is the same kind of dilemma that the Biden administration found themselves in, and they ended up in a tail chase against every threat that Putin would make about escalation. They would back down from doing the very action that would have put an effective military and economic pressure on them to back down and to end the war. So I hope we don't fall into that trap. I think it's time to call Putin's bluff. Every time that Trump does threaten secondary sanctions on Russia's benefactors like China and India, to its wartime economy, he gets on a plane and makes a phone call. I'm talking about Anchorage. This most recent exchange, and thankfully President Trump backed out of it because it was a setup, had every hallmark of being a setup, was that the threat of additional long-range weapons got Putin's attention.
He did debunk that.
He made a phone call.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I mean, that's good. He said today it was fake news that he's not going to give these things to him, but the fact that it's even being talked about is just remarkable to me. Yeah. I want to get to these drug boats. So there's his tweet, obviously, he's calling it fake news or truth or whatever they call it now. This, John, how many more boats do we have to blow up before the Venezuelan drug cartel is like, hey, this is not working?
Well, Carl, going after the drug boats is just but one piece of America's war on narco states. In the past, the war on drugs was just a law enforcement exercise. Now it's fused into a national security exercise as well with the rise of narco states, with Venezuela, 16% of their GDP coming from drug sales. So this is part of it. A lot of it's been going after the banking, the individuals. There's now a CIA element to it. It's a multi-pronged effort to deal with these nation-state actors now.
Yeah, but Brent, they're talking about the potential, and look, I am really wary about this, but the potential of OGAs, other government agencies, CIA, DIA, things like that, the three-letter agencies, potentially going in on the ground. Now, I'm not saying we don't do that, but I'm just saying, like, to talk about it openly is kind of unsettling.
Yeah, it's a little out of character to start talking about that type of operation, even if it's not being considered. But I will say the attacks of the cartel's boats at sea in international waters, that's where they're most vulnerable. And again, what appears to be going on here with the attack today that was just announced in the Pacific is clearly targeting the cartel's bottom line and taking out their ability to connect to markets in America and Europe through the seas. That's going to put them out of business, and that's going to cause them to turn inward. And also their benefactors, like the Maduro regime, to also lose the ability to maintain governance.
Well, Brent,
so you don't have to go on ground to get the effect.
Yeah, and Brent, literally how many times can we blow up the drug boats? Like, if they're not getting their drugs in, they're not getting paid. So can they sustain this type of, destruction?
That's the $700 billion question. That's the value of just the cocaine part of the market. How much capital reserves these narcotic cartels have, and the ability to move just enough through their networks to stay in business, it's an open question. But clearly, when we had Jidef South operating at peak capacity with partners in the region, at best we could take 10% off. So if we're taking 30 to 50% of their market off, that's enough to force them to end.
We'll see. Brent, John, appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
All right, before we go, Democrats care more about illegals than protecting Americans. Wait until you hear about this new master plan. Next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
I love Rise Mushroom Coffee, and not just because I look good drinking it. Hello there. The all-day energy I get is good too, and it's easy on the stomach. But mostly, it's because I look good drinking it.
McMulkin Chevrolet is the world's largest Corvette dealer once again, setting a record for the highest number of Corvettes ever sold in a calendar year, 1,857 in total. Your premier Corvette buying experience begins at McMulkin Chevrolet. McMulkin has hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery anywhere in the country. When you're ready to feel your presence in America's sports car, trust the #1 Corvette dealer in the world, McMulkin Chevrolet.
Today's league is all about game changers, faster play, crazy point swings, dudes that do it all. And DraftKings is the only sportsbook offering NBA League Pass, so you can catch the league's biggest stars all season long. Bet on all kinds of star player props. Bet live as the action happens. Bet with the only sportsbook that's dishing out exclusive access to NBA League Pass. All customers place $20 in NBA same-game parlay bets and get 3 months of NBA League Pass on us. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Mother Nature never takes a day off, and neither does LeafGuard. LeafGuard, the only seamless one-piece rainwater management system with a clog-free guarantee. In most cases, we can install LeafGuard in less than a day, and it comes with a lifetime transferable warranty. Call now for 10% off LeafGuard, a $100 Visa gift card with purchase, and a $50 gift card with estimate. Plus, call during this program for our double savings sale. Double your savings to 20% off a complete LeafGuard system. Double your bonus to a $200 Visa gift card with purchase. And if you call now, we'll double your free gift to a $100 gift card with estimate. And once you get LeafGuard, you'll have more time to go on vacation. Be one of the first 50 homeowners who call now will receive a vacation voucher with purchase of a complete LeafGuard system. Call now to take advantage of our double savings sale. Don't deal with those old gutters any longer. Call now for LeafGuard.
LeafGuard handled it great. We had an awful lot of rain the last couple of days, and we didn't get any clogs at all. All of the rain just went right down through the gutters. All the pine needles slid right off.
LeafGuard works so well that it's earned the Good Housekeeping seal 20 years in a row. Don't deal with those old gutters any longer. Call during this program and take advantage of our double savings sale. Double your savings to 20% off a complete LeafGuard system and double your bonus to a $200 Visa gift card with purchase. And remember, with LeafGuard, the top's not a cover, it's part of the gutter, and it comes with a clog-free guarantee. And if you call now, we're going to double your free gift. Receive a $100 gift card with your in-home estimate. And the first 50 homeowners who call will receive a vacation voucher with LeafGuard purchase. Call now to take advantage of our double savings sale. Don't deal with those old gutters any longer. Call now for LeafGuard.
Thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
You're going to hear all about this in depth from Rob in just a sec, but Dems are putting illegals before actual American citizens. The top Democrat of the House Oversight Committee announcing their new master plan to keep illegals safe. Roll this.
I shared this with the mayor. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, the Oversight Committee will be launching on their website a master ICE tracker where we're going to be essentially tracking every single instance that we can verify that the community will be able to send us information on, and it'll be all available in one central place. And you'll be able to look up that information as it relates to Los Angeles as well.
People just shot up an ICE facility. You got 1,000% more assaults, and you got these purple-haired people eaters outside of these things doing all kinds of criminal stuff and agitators, and this is what you're going with? Like, this is your pitch right now, and the resist. Rob, these people are going to get somebody. It might actually, you know what, to be honest, it may be them.
No, this is open war now. This is they're declaring it on immigration. They don't want borders. They don't want immigration anymore. That's their party stance.
Do they not want it, or do they not want it because Trump does?
Whatever the reason, it is the stupidest thing I've ever seen as a political party to make this stance, but this is where they are. It's something else.
Hey, you know what? I'm here for it, going to the midterms to see what happens.
Exactly.
Brother, take it away.
Carl, thanks so much.